We are live, back again. Another episode of Blockchain Buzz with Archie. We have two more guests coming, but they haven't arrived just yet. So Archie and I are like, let's kick it off, man. That's what we do. We get right down to it, man. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. It's good to be doing a dual stream on both channels for the first time.
Yes,
We've had a few good streams already talking about the markets, and it seems like every time we have a chat, a ton of stuff has happened in the crypto markets. Like every month or so, it feels like a whole year's gone by. So I'm looking forward to it.
absolutely, absolutely. A lot to cover. Um, the first thing I was kind of thinking of was this Clarity Act thing. Like, I do want to get into kind of where you see the market and all that stuff and what you're doing. But first, I really wanted to just touch on the Clarity Act first. And I have a little bit. I asked Grok. I said, if you had to guess, how much money do you think that big banks are throwing at fighting this Genius Act or this, the Clarity Act from passing? Sorry. And he says about 15 to 30 million dollars so far they've spent trying to stop this. And this is one of the biggest things for me. I know everyone's waiting on this, but do you think it's actually going to happen in 2026? Because for me, these banks are going to fight tooth and nail to for this yield on stable coins. This is like a sticking point. What do you think?
Yeah. So, on these types of matters that they're kind of out my realms of expertise, I kind of just trust Polymarket and just go off what the Polymarket polls are saying because they've been pretty right. I know a lot of people like to hate on Polymarket for various reasons, but Polymarket's given, I think, a 55% chance that it gets passed into law this year. So I guess it's pretty much a toss of a coin, right? But it was interesting what Brian Armstrong had to say regarding, some of the aspects of it which he opposed on behalf of Coinbase. But yeah, I'm not necessarily of the belief that the Clarity Act is like make or break for crypto this year. I see a lot of people saying that, it has to pass, otherwise it's going to be doomsday and everything's going to go to zero. And I'm not necessarily of the belief that it's like make or break, but I think it would certainly be bullish to get some regulatory clarity with the altcoin market, right?
Yeah, I think so much hype gets pushed around potential catalysts that people expect, instant gratification when we see these kind of catalysts come along. I think in the big picture, it'll be good, obviously, for the crypto space, for growth and adoption and all that stuff. But I mean, we've had every bull run has taken place without the Clarity Act up to this point, and it would continue, in my opinion, to take place without the Clarity Act. It's not just going to suddenly no more bull runs because we were in the last cycle 2020-ish. This was something that if you had told me then that we were going to have this, we probably would have laughed about it and said, yeah, like we're going to see Congress considering the Clarity Act, and it just wouldn't have seemed realistic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's funny because crypto seems to do better when it's actually hated by government bodies, when you've got Gary Gensler going after it and Democrats trying to basically sue all the different cryptos. It seems like we've done better in the past when we actually had an anti-crypto president, an anti-crypto government, an anti-crypto SEC. It seems like now we've got pro-crypto this, pro-crypto that, Fed chairs pro-crypto, presidents pro-crypto, and yet we're seeing, or we just saw, one of the worst post-halving years ever, if not the worst post-halving year ever, right, on record. So I'm not massively convinced of this whole argument that like the Clarity Act is make or break, like I just said. I think there's bigger things that will impact the crypto market, such as the macro economy,
Yeah.
more than maybe, legislation.
Yeah, I agree. Stuff like the carry trade, things of that nature, I think are more under the radar that the average retail investor doesn't even really know about or pay attention to. Because I find so many people get kind of blindsided by crashes and stuff like that. And meanwhile, it's the carry trade, or some major mortgage company out in China is going bankrupt, or you know what I'm saying? Like, but people don't pay attention to that stuff. But it's a
Yeah.
lot like I think people expect too much out of catalysts, potential catalysts, and in a way, it's our own fault because people get indoctrinated into crypto, almost expecting it to be driven by catalysts and not actually by fundamentals and liquidity, right? Take
Yeah.
the XRP clarity. What was it? Was it 2023, July 2023, or was it 2024, where XRP was declared not a security? Do you
Oh man, I
remember?
can't even remember the exact date now, but I remember when it came out, it didn't actually pump that much, right? It was like a short-term rally and then we came straight back down. It was like the biggest pump and dump ever, right?
Yeah, but everyone like I swear, like you can go back on my channel about 7 or 8 days before it was declared not a security. I was making a video, and it might have been a live stream, and I was talking about it because all of these content creators were saying it's going to go to $5, it's going to go to $10. I said it's like 2023. There's no money in the market. It was like a little over, just under $2 trillion market cap across the entire crypto space. It's like, where's this money going to come from to pump, XRP to $10 all of a sudden? And sure enough, if I said probably 80, 90 cents, I think it pumped to like 95 cents and then collapsed back down to like 45 cents or something.
Yeah. That's just how markets work. Like you can have major positive catalysts, have very little bearing in a bear market, and you can have very negative catalysts, have very little bearing in a bull market, and you just push it to the side and deal with it at a later date. The market just moves based off the trajectory that it's currently on, the levels that it's currently broken below or broken above. And it's all about momentum. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but Bitcoin and crypto have been in a form of negative momentum for months now. And, there was various signals flashing that we were losing momentum. But yeah, it all comes down to momentum in this market. If there's good news during a bear market's not going to care, right? Like no one cares about, like literally, I bet Trump could have came out and literally got rid of capital gains tax on crypto, which is probably the most bullish thing you could do. He could have done that last week and we'd still be below 70K. So, yeah, the market does what it's going to do. And I don't think these external catalysts matter as much as people say. I'm not saying they don't have any bearing, but people
Mm-hmm.
certainly over-egg them because it's interesting, right? People need clicks and we need talking points.
Well, that's exactly it, right? Too much emphasis on catalysts, not enough emphasis on studying liquidity, how these markets work. Because I often say that just because it's a bear market, say in crypto, it's a bull market somewhere. Liquidity's flowed somewhere, and as we've seen over the last year and a half, it's been the stock market, gold, silver, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, where does that money start to flow next, right? Well, for me, I'll sorry to cut you off there, but for me, it's not going to flow into crypto until we do get macroeconomic news and an environment where risk on appetite comes back.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that ever since we lost the 50-week moving average and the Gaussian channel, Bitcoin has been in a bear market, in my opinion. Now, a bear market can last a long time or it can last a short period of time. People say this can only be a bear market if we bottom in Q4, and that's not necessarily the case. Like we could have a very short bear market, kind of like what we had during COVID, right? We had like a very short period where the market tanked and then we managed to get through it again and then we went for a blow off top. And I think there's a very interesting argument out there that I've seen a few people make, and I'm not comfortable enough to make it myself, but I'm definitely giving it some credit. And that is that we are seeing kind of like a very short term drop down since October, and the market's having a bit of a reset, and we're going to experience pain, and we're basically resetting all the indicators. The RSI on the weekly is the lowest it's ever been. We've reset everything. And potentially this could be the setup to a blow off top in the next couple of years. And it sounds crazy to say that because I've been super bearish the last few months, waiting for the 200-week moving average to get hit. Now, it didn't exactly hit it, but we came extremely close to it. We were literally a hair away. So I
Yeah.
basically count it as being a hit, even though it wasn't. But for me, if we bounce here, there is a solid chance that this could be the pain over. If we continue to bounce here, if we get above 74K and we start building some good structure on the higher time frames again, it could be the end of this massive scare. And what's interesting in particular about this recent dump is that there's no clear black swan event that you could point to, such as like FTX going under or Coinbase going under or Binance or a massive stable coin breaking. There's no clear black swan, but Bitcoin's been moving in the same manner as what it would during a black swan event, such as COVID. We're literally moving down at the same velocity as a major black swan event. I mean, we were at 126K just in October. We're now in February. That's not a long period of time. And you would think Bitcoin's maturing as an asset, so the dumps aren't going to be as brutal. But that's very much not been the case. This has been a very high velocity dump. And it almost feels like there's been a black swan, even though us masses, we don't know about it. It's almost like something's been going on behind the scenes. The smart money, the elites, they've been moving money out. It's kind of like a, you know, small section of the populace that actually understand what's going on. And we're all just kind of the sheep going about things, and we don't truly know what's going on behind the scenes. It seems like there has been some form of coordinated effort to exit crypto and also to exit software companies. I don't know if you guys have seen the correlation on what's been going on with some of the software companies out there, but man, some of these stocks have been absolutely decimated in the software sector. So something's going on. There's some shift of money going on. Could it be to quantum computing threats? I don't know. But the who's, they know what's going on. What we're not really enlightened right now.
Yeah, all we can really do is try to follow the money as best we can. And like I said, I tend to put my pennies where they put their dollars, right? I don't worry about all the noise and everything. And I've often said this too, is that crypto is so easy that it's hard, right? Because people overthink everything because of there's so much noise in this space over on X and on YouTube, and you're convinced that the market's going to do something as someone who's just following along, and then you watch, two or three other videos or two or three other posts on X, and all of a sudden now you've completely flipped your position, and now you're not sure, if the 200 weeks the bottom, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. That's why crypto is so hard. People overthink it, their emotions get involved, and all of a sudden they're making irrational decisions. And that's why I like watching your stuff too, is because you're always just, this is emotionless. This is professional. This is what it is, right? The 50 week, boom, we've lost it. We're going down. I'm going to sell. 200 week, we found it. Guess what? Well, like $2,000 from it, whatever. Guess what? I'm going to buy, right? And there's no emotion or anything that's manipulating your decisions, and I really appreciate that about you. So.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you've got to just cancel out all the noise, man. You really do. I mean, I have a group with hundreds of different opinions in it every day that I hear. I get loads of criticism whenever I make a move. And man, it's funny, but what I've learned is the more criticism you get, the more likely you are to be right. Because let's face it, the masses haven't got a clue. Retail are called dumb money for a reason. They are dumb for the most part. They haven't got a clue what's going on. They sell low and they buy high. That is what retail do 9 times out of 10. And, we're retail as well, but we're just trying to be a bit more enlightened than, the people that do what I just said. So you've really just got to have a regimental system in place. And I have both cycles that I've been full-time crypto. Well, last cycle I was still at college, but I was, I was doing crypto full time. I was still doing it 8 hours a day, even though I was at college. But yeah, I mean, you've got to have a system in place. For me, it's sell the 50 week, buy the 200 week, and everything else in between is noise. Everyone's saying this time will be different. That's all noise. Most likely than not, this time will not be different. We will see all-time highs on Bitcoin in a year or two. Most likely, 99% chance that happens. And yeah, everything else is noise. It's interesting. Every time we get low, the same old FUD stories all seem to come out. No one was talking about Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy at 120K, or saying that, USDT, it depegged a little bit. No one was bothered about these types of things, but it all seems to come up right when prices are low. And that's why I always say prices are what drive the narrative, not the other way around. If prices are low, the narrative's going to be negative. If prices are high, the narrative's going to be positive, like crypto strategic reserve. Everyone was harping on about that for months straight. When I haven't heard anyone talk about strategic reserve in months. But I was thinking, by the way, if they are going to do a strategic reserve, now would be a pretty good time for them to actually strike on it and to start buying Bitcoin, because it would have been ridiculous, let's face it, for them to do a strategic reserve at 120K or 110K, whatever price it was when people were talking about it. If I was Trump, now would be the time to be doing this around the 200-week moving average. So, it's funny. You never hear about these types of positive catalysts when we're low. Everyone just focuses on the negative. And that is why ultimately people don't buy these dips. They wait for us to go back up, let's say 100K, that psychological number, because then they get the confirmation bias. They feel safer, and it just feels more comfortable buying at 100K than it does at 60. And that's the thing. It's painful to buy low. Actually, it can be scary buying Bitcoin at 60K, because it could go to zero. Right? That's the fear that people have. Whereas if it's at 100K, then people think, oh, it's not going to zero, it's going to the moon. So that's what it all comes down to for me.
It's funny you say that, because someone asked me yesterday, or someone had mentioned yesterday in the live stream, I think crypto might be dead, Bitcoin might be dead. So I brought up the Bitcoin obituary chart since its inception, right? 462 times it's been declared dead. If you had bought $100 worth of Bitcoin every single time, you'd have $72,355,133 today.
That's it.
You can't make this stuff up, man. It's hilarious,
Yeah.
But
that's it.
But like you said, it's hard to buy when everything is red and all you see is negativity everywhere. But at the end of the day, that's where the money's made, right? Like you got to take the crookeds with the straights. The people who get scared, you have to understand, if you're scared at these prices, but then you're wondering later how the people who are making money are making it, it's because they're buying in the fear and you're not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to someone in my group earlier, and I'm not going to name him because I don't want to be the name and shame guy. But he was like, I don't understand how people actually have made money in crypto and all of this. And, I asked him just a few coins, for example, like what was your average on Casper? What was your average on Sui? 2 coins, which I did relatively well on this bull run. And his averages were really, really high. They were at 10 or 12 cents Casper, a few dollars Sui, I think it was. Yet my averages were way lower. And I think what happens is people wait for things to start moving before they start deploying heavy. And they see, YouTubers saying, oh, Casper could go to this or Sui could go to this. And then they buy in loads really high up, when in reality, they should just be like the little cherry on top buys when we're going high, right? Like sometimes I continue to fill my bags even though I'm up 4 or 5x on something. But these are tiny buys that I'm doing. The vast bulk of the buys I was doing right at the very bottom at the lows. But yeah, you've got to buy the fear. You've got to just learn how to read basic charts. Like it's not hard to just pull the RSI up on Bitcoin and see that it's the lowest it's literally almost ever been.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to just throw a moving average on Bitcoin and see that we're very close to the 200-week moving average, which I think something like 8 times out of 10, I don't know the exact figure, but like 8 times out of 10, you've had an instant bounce from there and you've absolutely moonshotted from that point. So the reality is, man, these people just aren't going to make it. The people who won't buy now and they're going to wait for it to go up for the confirmation bias, they're just never going to make it because they haven't rewired their brain. You almost have to train your brain. I said this on one of my recent live streams. You have to train your brain to be happy in the negative times and be sad in the positive times. I was probably the most depressed I've ever been. I've never been depressed, but you know what I mean. I was probably the most agitated I've ever been in October because I knew prices were high and it was scary for me. But that's actually the opposite of most people. They have the fear when prices are low and the euphoria when prices are high. But I'm euphoric right now. And I know you shouldn't have emotion, but I kind of am very euphoric. I've had the best sleeps I've ever had in the last 2 nights. I'm just made up that the plan that I set out to deploy has come into fruition and prices are low again. And I'm actually, for the first time, I wanted to announce this, for the first time in multiple months, I'm now officially macro bullish. And I've been macro bearish all year and some of last year. So towards the end of last year. So for the first time, I'm actually macro bullish. And yet, you know, we're where we are right now in the 60s.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed, I want to get into that a little bit with you, but I just wanted to go back on something you had said about, people, the people who are not really succeeding in this space. Another thing that I notice a lot through the last, let's say, 2 years is people who are unwilling to invest in their education in this space, right? There's so many brand new people in crypto who come in who don't know anything. And listen, we all come into it not knowing anything. I didn't know my ass from my elbows when I first, got into crypto, right? So I had to learn through time in the market, through research, through, education. But so many people, they think that they can just come in, mumble and stumble their way through the space and walk out a millionaire without getting any kind of putting in any work, any kind of education. And there's options out there. Like I know you have a VIP group. I have a Patreon where both of us, we educate people. And, the same people who are unwilling to pay for their own education are constantly asking for free help, and free education. And it's like, man, like you want us to help you make, untold amounts of money is your goal. So you're not willing to pay whatever it is. I don't know, whatever it costs, $50 or whatever your education, it's going to cost you. So, the world just doesn't work that way. Like you also have to, you're investing in crypto, but you also have to invest in your education and in yourself, right? You have to actually apply yourself and not just your money, but your time.
Yeah. I find it insane how people spend, what is it, 50 grand, 100 grand, maybe more to send their kids to college, or to go to college themselves and have to pay all that debt, yet they won't spend a few $100s or whatever to educate themselves on something that's actually going to make them money, right? Like college isn't going to make you money. I went to college and I dropped out after a month of it. The stuff they were teaching, I already knew. You could have just Googled it, like these professors are just reading from a textbook. We're actual crypto investors who, have made it through crypto. Like, and we can tell our own story and we can give our own strategies. Like, you're not going to get that in college for the most part. So, not to make this a whole college debate type of thing, but I find it baffling how people will go to college but will refuse to spend a few dollars on a course or on a membership or something like that to actually learn and get to a high skill level at something like crypto.
Oh, absolutely. And time is the other thing. I tell people all the time, like if people say, "Well, I don't have time." I have 2 kids. I have 6 kids, right? What else you got, right? And say, well, I say, when I first got into it, I spent every weekend or every waking minute either with crypto YouTube, with reputable people that I'm watching, playing in the background, whether I'm driving or, Even when I'm working, I got my phone. Like I'm always listening, taking in what's going on, what's the macro, all this stuff. I put Netflix aside, I put the bar aside and drinks, I put all that stuff aside, and I focused. And then I try to tell people, and I'm sure it's the same for you. People, how many times have people said to you, it's easy for you to say? It's easy for you to say. You're already wealthy. Well, like it just happened, right?
Yeah.
You know,
They don't see all the hard work. They just see, the success. They don't see all the hard work. Like literally since the age of 13, I've been doing crypto minimum 8 hours a day. And now I'm doing it like 16 hours a day, maybe like every living moment, pretty much. I've got either a chart in front of me, my Discord chat in front of me, or I'm on a call, discussing the market with other people. So it's not a coincidence that I'm able to kind of make these big predictions right. Like people say, how did you call 15K bottom in 2022? You called 126K top on the day on your channel. And maybe you've just called the bottom. We don't know yet. We can't confirm it, but I did just buy Bitcoin at 60,000. They say, how do you do that? Well, it's because literally I'm full-time crypto 24/7 for 8 years. If you put your mind to something and do it 16 hours every day for 8 years, you'd probably be that good at something, right? So, but the masses, unfortunately, they've got other things going on. So that's why having a mentor, someone like you or me or whoever, it comes in handy, right? Because we're basically doing a lot of the work for you. But you should still do your own research. You should never just blindly follow, in my opinion.
Yeah, you should take what we give you and you should expand upon it for sure. Like we did some trades just the other day. We shorted 4 projects. We shorted Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, and I want to say Ethereum. And people were walking away from that with like 2,000%, leverage trading, obviously, but 2,000% on these shorts, 1,500%. And I was showing them on a live the other day. It's just like, you can make money in the space if you educate yourself first, right?
Yeah.
So, but what are your thoughts moving forward? Where are you at, and what's your plan? If you don't mind, you don't have to share all of it. I know some of it's for your VIP members and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just share my screen here. We'll go over some of the key bits of information. So as you know, and many of the people watching will know, but not everyone, so I'll just explain it. Since we lost the 50 week, I was essentially fully in stables. Now I was selling on the way up, taking profits, rotating stables into property and diversifying my assets. But once we lost that, that was for me the line in the sand to basically sell everything and flip bearish. Now, I always said the level I'm waiting for is the 200-week moving average, but I'm not going to wait exactly for it to get hit before I start buying, because that's a bit of a risky proposition. Because what if something like what just happened here occurs, where we essentially become a hair away from it, right? 59K was where we wicked down to, and 58K is where that 200 weekly moving average was, which has been great support historically. Wasn't the best support in 2022, I've got to say. So maybe we will go below it. But besides 2022, if you take that one scenario away, it's been perfect. 2022 itself had a little bit of a different scenario going on because we did have a recession under Joseph Biden, which everyone knew deep down, but they were covering it up, right? The media were covering it up. And we did actually have a recession under Biden, but they changed the definition and all of this crazy stuff. We also had FTX as well. So that was a bit of a deeper bear market, you could say, than normal based off the 200 week. But yeah. And then besides that, every other time it's been great support. And I've got the base case that it will be great support again until proven otherwise. And if I do get proven otherwise, I'll happily buy down. I'll happily lower my average, buy lower. And even if we go super low, I'm going to start taking out loans. Now, I'm not recommending that to people. I want to be clear, but I do have properties. I do have a cash flowing business. So I can use things as collateral. I can be smart with it to the point where it doesn't wreck my life. So obviously be sensible. I'm not recommending people who only have $10,000 to their name go and get a loan for $20,000, right? I'm not recommending that. But if we do go super, super deep, that is the point where I will start doing that. And that will be just for Bitcoin alone, not for anything else, just Bitcoin. And I'll do it so that, if it all goes bust, I can still live a great life. They just take one of my properties or whatever. That's fine. I can move on. There's still, bread on the table. But that's the worst case scenario. Like if we start going into the 30s, then in that scenario, that would be my last resort because I would have already used all of my stables. Now, right now, I think I'm about 50% in the market, 50% stables. I'm just waiting here just to see a little bit more whether we're going to break above 74K or whether we're potentially going to come back down and fill this wick. I'm just waiting to see what happens, and then I'll probably deploy the rest. But we came down to major support, essentially. We have 200-week moving average and a golden pocket, both around 57K. We came down to 58K. Why was that? Because people front run it. People were buying before we got to the key level because everyone knew that it was an obvious level at 57K. So they set their buy orders a little bit above it. Like myself, I did one at 60K. So people were already thinking about this, and we were literally front running the dump. So there is a chance this is the low. And for that reason, I've deployed heavily just in the last 48 hours. I was in stables for this entire move down here. It's only the last 48 hours I've started deploying the stables. And these are the altcoins which I'm personally very fond of. These are the top 6, right? And then there's these 2 additional ones as well. But these top 6 are kind of the projects I'm super bullish on. Obviously, Bitcoin isn't an alt, but I just put here the bull run targets. Now, when the next bull run will be, I don't know. It could be 2027. We don't know, right? But whenever Bitcoin makes a new high, that would be like my target for the next bull run. And then these would also be the altcoin targets whenever Bitcoin does go to, the 200K target. So I'm really bullish on layer ones. I mentioned Plasma to you a few months ago, and it continued to dump. It did have that breakout, though. I don't know if you remember seeing it. It did have that nice breakout. So if you took profits, you would have made good gains, but it's come all the way back down again. And those are the types of projects that I'm looking at right now. Layer ones that are very undervalued. Obviously, if you want to be safe, just go for Ethereum and Solana, but everyone knows that. We want to try and look for where the value's at. And I think projects like projects like XPL, Sui, Casper, there's some really good layer ones that are 7 to 10x's away from all-time highs. And they don't even need to go to all-time highs, and you're making 5x's and more. So I think there's great value in some of these discounted layer ones right now. You don't need to go down the rabbit hole too much and buy all these crazy different projects, modularity coins and layer 2s and all of this. Just stick with layer ones that have use cases and have good backing, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I remember that. We were looking at XPL. It was just set for that breakout, and I know that it did because Ben, shout out to Ben over in our Patreon community. I think he's been stocking up on it since back then, and it had a nice breakout for him. So I remember that, but I also remember that you and I talked about the potential support levels for Bitcoin the last time we spoke. And how surprised are you? As surprised as I am that Bitcoin shot through $69,000 like it wasn't even there.
Am I surprised? Truthfully, I'm not massively surprised because I was not expecting 74K or 69K to hold. And the reason for that was because we lost the 50-week moving average. The reason 74K held back here was because it was on the 50-week moving average. Now, 69K you mentioned, yes, that was the 2021 all-time high of November. There was also a high at 64K in April. We shot through both of those to the downside. Now, maybe one of them should have held, But the reality is, I was seeing something very concerning Saturday last week, this time last week. And I told you that just before we went live, that Bitcoin was seeing unusual volatility on a Saturday to the downside. And I think that's the first time I've seen that in years. And that for me was a red flag. And as soon as I saw that, I went onto my Discord voice chat that we do daily, and I said to them, I'm expecting fireworks next week. That was the exact phrase I used. I'm expecting fireworks next week, because that was just very unusual to be seeing the choppiness we saw on a Saturday. Saturdays are days off for the New York Stock Exchange. Usually there's very little volume on Bitcoin. Sometimes it's so boring. It's just sideways, 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 like literally 0.2% moves on Bitcoin. But we were seeing crazy volatility on a Saturday. And as soon as I saw that, I was expecting the worst, to be honest with you. And I said to the guys, the 200-week moving average could come in a lot sooner than people think. People were expecting it to hit in Q4. And I was saying, maybe we're actually in the process of front running a negative 2026. Has anyone thought of that? That maybe we're pricing in right now the whole year being bad? And maybe we've actually got a little bit ahead of ourselves, because it's so obvious for the 4-year cycle believers that we're basically going to dump all year long, all the way until Q4. And when something becomes such a consensus viewpoint that literally the dumbest people in crypto are spewing it, you know for a fact that it's already probably getting priced in to an extent, right? And I think what happened was a lot of people were expecting that we would blast through this top. A lot of people were saying that we wouldn't have a traditional 4-year cycle top, and this time would be different. And the masses actually got caught out on this top, thinking that the 4-year cycle would break. So then they basically said to themselves, okay, the 4-year cycle, that's here to stay. It's never going to break. We're going to dump all the way until Q4. And basically the masses come to the assumption that we're just going to have a normal bear market where we go down all year long. And I think because so many people believe that, you had a mass selling effect as well. Getting ahead of ourselves, like I said. We've basically done, in my opinion, what would it be? Like 3/4 of a normal bear market in a few months. We basically just done here. And I think the reason we've come down with such velocity is because of how obvious the 4-year cycle has become. And everyone is basically assuming that it's just going to be the same old bear market of down all year. You find a bottom in Q4. And for that reason, my base case is actually that we do not bottom in Q4. As crazy as that sounds, my base case is that we do not bottom in Q4. Could it happen? Of course. But because the masses all believe that, and because we had a normal 4-year cycle top, which a lot of people didn't expect, now they've all come on board with the 4-year cycle again. I think there's actually going to be a bit of a deviation. And I'm going to just show everyone this very quickly here, which was the $74,000 Bitcoin in March 2024. That in and of itself was a bit of a crack within the 4-year cycle, arguably, because we went to a new all-time high a year before we probably should have, right? We went to a new all-time high before the halving. That does not normally happen on BTC. And then after the halving, we essentially went sideways for 8 months or even down. That also is a major abnormality. That is something which does not normally happen for Bitcoin, just going down all year after the halving. The halving is usually a very bullish catalyst. Now, I'm not going to get into my thoughts on the halving too much now, but I do believe that it's diminishing in its effect. But yeah, I'm actually of the belief that we could see a left-leaning bear market. And there's many reasons for that. Not least the fact that we didn't necessarily have the blow off top this cycle. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one thing that I notice is that it's the same people that were screaming this time is different for the bull run, for the bull case, for the cycle, are the same people crying this time is the same for the bear market phase.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't make sense, right? You got to take the crookeds with the straights. If the bullish scenario of the cycle is different, well then so is the bearish. So I do agree with you. And the fact that, like you and I talked about, that Bitcoin has come down so much faster than anyone really had anticipated, especially over this last couple of weeks, could indicate that, I mean, like, look, we came within like $2,000, $2,500 of the 200-week moving average, and people like you and I have been saying for months. I remember you and I were talking about that. I think maybe November or December, we were talking about how if we, before we even lost the 50-week, you and I were talking about it, and that if we did, we were going to come down to the 200-week. And we got there so fast. You know, that to me says different.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, like you just said, everyone who was saying this time is different, they're now on board with the traditional 4-year cycle again. Also, everyone who was screaming this time is different as well with the 50-week and was saying that that wouldn't play out and that we'd somehow manage to find major support at like 80K or 74K or whatever, they've also now flipped bearish, I've noticed. A lot of the people who were screaming to me, you made the wrong decision selling your portfolio up here, they're now bearish. I've noticed a lot of them. And a lot of the mainstream YouTubers as well are starting to say, I saw one of them, one of the big ones, actually post on X, literally at the bottom. He said, I don't know what it is about this dip, but I'm scared to buy it. It's too low. I want to wait for prices to go up so I have more confirmation. Yeah, that confirmation is called confirmation bias. It's where you wait for prices to go higher because it makes you feel better buying it. So yeah, I noticed a lot of the YouTubers saying we're fine. The high time frame structure is still intact. We haven't broken down. They're now starting to get bearish again. And that to me is another signal that maybe this is either a short-term bottom, a local bottom, or it is maybe even the bear market bottom, believe it or not. And I just find it crazy that the people who were super, super, super bullish 2 months ago when I was warning people about the downsides, they're now flipping bearish and capitulating and selling their portfolios at the lows. Find it crazy. They're de-risking now when their portfolio is down 90%.
Yeah, and those people at the top too, when you were saying, like, when we're saying, you know, we're going to go down if we lose the 50-week, how many people got angry with you? Like, I got so many people who get angry with me when I say, you know, we're going to go down. Or the flip side of that, over the past 2 months, I've been saying very clearly and unmistakably that we are going down to at least the 200-week moving average. Expect more downside, pounding on it like a drum, right? And then, but then, like, every single day that we get a red candle, we go down further, some people act surprised and angry and frustrated. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're angry and frustrated. I've been telling you for months this is coming. You should be ready for this at this point, right? But they get mad at you for telling them instead of preparing for what's coming.
You know, the most mad I've ever experienced people, and look, people were mad when I was talking about the 50-week, but when I was suggesting on my live stream, now I'll be honest, I didn't say categorically 100% this is the top. I didn't say that. But what I said, I was very careful with my words. What I said is, in terms of probabilities, more likely than not, this is the top. I think I said I'm about 70 to 80% sure. And that was on the day. I can't remember the day in October, but that was on the day. And I was seeing this kind of exhaustion pattern that we kept wicking up to this trend line and rejecting, wicking up and rejecting, wicking up and rejecting. And I was seeing that it was October and time wasn't on our side. And I just said to people, guys, there's a chance this is the top. More likely than not, in my view, this is the top. I got crazy hate on that live stream, more than ever, right? And I've given some bad calls here and there, right? I've had a YouTube channel for like 4 years. So there's been a few calls where people have they've lost money on them, right? Some meme coins haven't done well, et cetera, et cetera.
Everybody did.
Yeah, everyone has. But man, people have lost money on calls and not been as mad as when I was calling the top then. They were more mad then than when like a meme coin I called didn't do well, for example, which is crazy. Yeah. I find that asinine.
Well, for me, it's that too many people come into it thinking that you have to think in terms of ranges. People think too much when it comes to TA and following these charts. They think about certainties as opposed to probabilities, right? And like I often say, for me, on any given chart you're looking at, you could probably find two, three, maybe four different possible scenarios that could potentially play out on any given chart, right? Too bearish, too bullish, let's say, right? People are like, well, you're just guessing. Yeah, it's an educated guess. That's what it is, right? There's no one who knows for sure, right? So yeah, that's the thing. But I agree. I'm getting excited too. As I told you off camera there, I told my Patreon members I'll know by Tuesday. I want to see how the weekend plays out and what kind of happens on Monday. I often say Monday is a liar because usually whatever happens Monday, kind of the opposite of what happens the rest of the week. So once Tuesday rolls around, I think I'll make my decision for sure. But I think I might start lathering back into the market, or lathering into a new portfolio, I should say, at
Yeah.
that time.
Honestly, man, I've never felt better. Like, I know, and look, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed bottom. I want to be clear. My base case is that it's certainly some form of bottom, and we won't go lower for some time. But it felt great buying back into the market because people need to realize, right? It's a high stress environment. When you got a lot of money in crypto and you're not just dealing with $100 and you literally sold everything and told an entire group and an entire channel that you're bearish and you're in stables, there's a pressure there. There's a risk that I might look like an idiot if I'm buying back in higher, if things explode, right? Now, fortunately for me, the market did come down and I was able to basically buy everything and acquire 2, 3, 4x as many tokens as what I sold. And I was saying to people, like, in what other scenario can you get that? Imagine selling a house on a street, and then 4 months later you can buy 3 of them on the same street. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere else other than crypto. And that's essentially the move that people have pulled off. So it just feels good, man. And honestly, I'm still bullish on a lot of the same projects I was bullish on in October. But one thing I would say is don't underestimate the chances of how long we could go sideways for. We could actually be in a range here on Bitcoin and crypto for the rest of the year. As crazy as that sounds to some people, we might not go above 100K for the rest of the year. We might just range between 60 to 80K for months and months and months. If you go and look at 2022, we range between 15 to 25K for something like 8 or 9 months. It was between June of 2022 all the way until March, April of the following year. We were in that range, with the low side being 15 to 17K Bitcoin and the high side being around 25K. It was only the following year in the spring where we actually managed to break out of that range and then start going back up again. So you might have a long time to actually accumulate, and I'm not going to complain with that. I'd be happy to do that. But don't expect, explosions to the upside anytime soon. We could seriously go sideways for a long time, and that'll give you time to load up, right?
Well, that's the best case scenario for me personally. If we have found our bottom and we just kind of chop where we are, between, let's say, I don't know, 60,000 and 69,000 or whatever, for me, that is perfect. I say go sideways for the rest of the year. Let me accumulate, man. Right? Because I'll stuff my bags. I'll keep stuffing them. Gives me more time to buy more, and off to the races. So people should be happy. And for people who need more dry powder, they need to work their job or whatever. I mean, this is your opportunity. You can get a second job. You can work overtime. I mean, this is going to give you the time that you need to accumulate as well, right? Especially if you're still holding projects that you didn't sell. Well, guess what? Now you can lower your cost average massively at these prices.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm not necessarily calling like a V-shaped recovery here. It's probably going to be more like a U, like a longer recovery. I don't think this is the same as back in April. I see a lot of people arguing that this is the same as April and we're going to just go straight to all-time highs in 2 months. I think most likely we are going to range for some time, and you are going to have chances to load up. And some altcoins, their bottoms may be in. Other altcoins' bottoms may not be in, and they actually continue going lower. I was looking at XRP a few weeks ago, and I said, this looks like it's about to fall off a cliff. It had a massive M pattern. It rejected at the same point twice, and it had one of those major parabolic banana rallies, right? Like these crazy pumps. And usually when you see that, the explosive pump, you see the dump as well, because you failed to make a base on the way up. If it's just an instant God candle, you're going to come back down with a death candle, because you need to build higher highs, higher lows, nice little bases of consolidation on the way up, kind of like what gold has been doing for the past 5 years. Really nice, gradual rallying. Whereas XRP, it had that one day or week when Gary Gensler left, and it just went bang straight up, and it just looked like it was going to come straight back down. So maybe XRP is an example of a coin which may not have bottomed yet, and maybe that one keeps going down, just for example, right? Just for an example purpose. Whereas maybe something like Casper, which has arguably been in a bear market for years now, maybe Casper has bottomed. So it's going to be a bit hit or miss in this range that I believe we'll be in. Some alts would have bottomed, some alts haven't. Your best bet is just to buy into the positions you have conviction in and continue, averaging into them low. Now, I don't use the dollar cost average strategy. I buy low, right? I average in low. I don't know what kind of term you can use to define it, but people say dollar cost average. That basically means buy every single day, regardless of price, even at all-time highs. No, I average in at low prices. That's what I do. And I would argue we're in that viable period here that would be deemed a low price range. And I personally think we could be below this range here. I've just drawn this line out. Below this range for a long period of time. And that's going to give you potentially months to accumulate into alts at cheap prices.
Yeah, I agree. I would call that still DCing. I tend to, when it comes to altcoins, I tend to only buy on the red days too. I mean, there's never, if you zoom out in a cycle, there's never a shortage of flash crashes and stuff like that to really, fill your bag. So, and that's what I try to tell people on those flash crash days is like, guys, look, yes, it's a flash crash. It's not the first one, and it's not going to be the last one. So you're good. If you're going to be in crypto long term, you're going to have to get comfortable with it, right?
Yeah, there's no wisdom in buying high. Like people go, oh, I've got this strategy. I buy every day regardless of price. There's no wisdom to me in buying Bitcoin when the RSI is up here. It's really not that difficult to just average in at low prices. Like I said, I don't know if I call it DCA. Maybe you still qualify it as DCAing, but just at low prices. Yep. But this is the time, man. This is the time to be stacking. This is the time to be optimistic. The time to be optimistic wasn't up here. This was the time to actually be very pessimistic. Now is the time to be optimistic, because everyone and their mother are saying that Bitcoin and crypto is dead. And whenever you start hearing that, that's when you want to start loading up and getting excited.
Exactly. Let's burn through a couple comments here. See if we can find some questions. Chris says Rob was correct for some months, but it's all on me, not Rob or Cesar or anyone else. Yeah, exactly. That's a good attitude to have, right? Because I could be, I might be right. I might have been right for months so far, but there will come a time again where I'll be wrong, right? So, see if we have any questions I want to get to. Apex says Archie gets hate for giving a good advice. Yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah, they don't like the honesty, man. It hurts.
100%. I just want to see if there's any questions. There we go. Caspa target. What do you think?
So I do believe at some point Casper will hit $1. I don't know when. It could be years from now. but I do believe at some point it will hit that psychological level. But if you want more of a short-term target, I would say once it breaks 5 cents, I'm expecting a moon mission up to 30 cents and a new all-time high, because Casper, I'll just very quickly pull up the chart here. It's been in a bear market for years. Like I said earlier, it's been in this wedge pattern, and it briefly broke below it during that crash. But look, it managed to close almost on it. So I still qualify this wedge as still being very much intact, but it's been compressing and compressing and compressing. And this wedge goes all the way back to March of 2024. Once we break 5 cents, which is just a little bit above the resistance of the wedge, but once we get out of this trading range, I do believe a major move to the upside is on for Casper, because all that compression, think about pushing something down, and then you let go. And then all of a sudden it bursts up. I don't know what object does that. Maybe people have an example they can think of, but that's what I expect Casper to do.
Well, I actually have a theory about that when it comes to the altcoins, and it goes back to something that you said earlier in this chat, and it's that taking people by surprise when everyone thinks something's going to happen. I think going into this cycle, even when Bitcoin starts to move to the upside again, I think that because of what happened with alts in this cycle, and yes, I mean, altcoins did technically hit on altcoin season, 3 times, right? But not to the degree that people were expecting. So I think because of that, what we're going to see is the narrative on alts is still going to bleed into this cycle, saying, well, altcoin season's dead. There's not going to be an altcoin season. No one's going to really expect it. And then it's just going to, I think alts are just going to have a far more violent move than this last one. And it's going to take everybody by surprise.
Well, we had a glimpse of what alts can do with what the privacy coins were doing. The privacy coins were giving us, well, I'll admit I made no money on privacy coins. So I'll just put it out there. But I did tell people the Monero top. I did say this is the top for Monero. Short it. I didn't short it myself. Maybe you could say I didn't have the balls to do it, but I did tell other people that was the top for Monero, and it turned out to be. But the privacy coins, they went up 5 to 10x within a matter of a few weeks. And that's what I think something like Casper would do. You know, something that's been suppressed for so long, has solid fundamentals, but just has really bad sentiment right now. Once it catches a bid, there will be great FOMO that comes to it. Just like the privacy coins. They've been suppressed for years, like some Monero, Zcash, some of the others, suppressed for years. They break through their resistance, and then all of a sudden, there's a massive rush to acquire them. And I think the same thing will happen to something like Casper and many of the other altcoins which have similar structures. But this one in particular has a beautiful wedge on the all-time chart.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big Casper fan. We got into Casper pretty early as well. I know you guys did also. So
Right.
I agree, though. Yeah, and Casper, you know what? Relatively, in a relative bear market, Casper, that's where Casper really performed. So maybe we repeat.
Maybe.
Hey Archie, what's a left-leaning bear market?
So when I say that, I just mean that it's going to be shorter than expected, right? If you think about right translated, means it's going to be further in the future than expected. Left translated or left leaning would mean that it's more to the beginning of the year than to the end of the year, because everyone's saying we're going to bottom out in Q4. I'm questioning that a little bit. And it's not just the fact that everyone's saying it. I want to be clear. It's also to do with the macro and some other things that's maybe making me think that we might bottom out earlier than Q4. And maybe the bottom is even in. No one's really accepting that because it's hard to believe, but I'm just putting it out there that there's a solid chance the bottom could be in.
We'll call it a bottom range.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I like Midnight. I do like Midnight. I think that having Charles behind it, I don't think Charles is going to launch a project like Midnight, and I mean going into privacy coins like you mentioned. I just don't think Charles is going to launch it and then just let it die on the vine. I think he's going to fight tooth and nail for something to happen. So I think Midnight is going to have a pretty good cycle. It just launched at a bad time, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of coins launched at a bad time. Plasma, I'd say, is the perfect example as well. This one seems to be in the same box of launching right kind of at a bad time. The chart doesn't look the greatest when you look at the launch and then the kind of massive dump, but I've seen crazier things, right? I've seen coins down 98% somehow make it back. So I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm not the biggest Cardano guy. I was last cycle, I'll tell you that. Cardano is my blue chip last cycle, but this time around, I haven't held Cardano personally or any projects on it.
Cardano, yeah, definitely underperformed, I think, very largely this cycle. But last cycle, congratulations on that, because it was a beast in the last cycle.
I don't know how it went so high. Like, it literally went to like a 90 billion market cap, was it, Cardano? I still don't know how it did that. I mean, the hype was crazy. And basically what I was doing last cycle was flipping meme coins. Anything with Elon in the name, anything with dog in the name. That's how dumb it was, man. But I was just at school under the desk with my phone out, and I was just basically on Trust Wallet and MetaMask flipping these memes, and I was rotating the profits into Cardano. That was kind of like, instead of going into cash, I was going into Cardano with the profits, and it seemed to work pretty well. But yeah, I'd never held it this bull run. I just felt like if there was going to be one to come back out of Cardano and Solana, I felt Solana was more heading in the right direction in terms of institutional adoption. And Cardano is just a little bit slower, a little bit more of a kind of intellectual chain rather than an actual adopted chain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you had FUD in the last cycle about Cardano because it didn't have smart contracts and stuff like that, right? I remember that was the main talking point about Cardano in terms of negativity and FUD. And I think that this cycle, they got that, and then no one built on Cardano, right? So I think that might be right. One of the issues is that you didn't see any major partnerships. You didn't see anybody building on their blockchain. So, like, I think that probably was one of the reasons.
Yep.
Wow, that's a red month right there, man.
Look at that.
Plasma is XPL. That's a ticker on that. Jetpack wants to know, or he says anyway, XDB. Do you know anything about XDB?
Let me just check. XDB.
Yeah, it's a small cap, tiny cap that we love.
I'll have to check it out, man. I've honestly, it's the first time in a while someone's given me a coin I don't know. Is it quite small?
It's tiny. Yeah, it's let me see if I can pull it up on CoinGecko there. It's probably just
2 million market cap. Wow.
Yeah. I'm bullish on it though. They're making partnerships with the likes of Zebek and payment rails, streamlining payment rails and stuff like that. So I think it could give some really good returns this cycle, especially at such a small market cap. It's a flyer play if people don't do the research on the utility, but I think it'll be a good one.
I'll have to check it out.
Thoughts on DOT?
I wouldn't hold it. It's another one of these kind of dinosaur coins, which, look, some of them did have a little bit of light at some points this cycle, but I think they were mainly exit pumps. Like, people were getting really excited when some of these dino coins had little rallies, but just think they were nothing more than exit pumps. Polkadot had the time to shine this cycle, and it didn't do anything. And for me, if an altcoin that was around in 2021 didn't either get close or surpass its all-time high in 2025, then it's evident that it's not even outperforming Bitcoin on a cycle-to-cycle basis, right? Which to me is not a promising sign. Solana made a new all-time high. Ethereum made a marginal new all-time high. BNB made a significant new high. XRP made a new high. So there was plenty of blue chips from prior cycles. Tron is another one. plenty of blue chips in prior cycles which made new highs. Polkadot and Cardano didn't. So for me, I wouldn't consider them. But that's not to say they'll never rally again.
Yeah, I personally don't. I don't like DOT itself. I think that there's a couple potential gems in the ecosystem, but DOT itself, I just am not. I wouldn't be interested in either. I agree. Another one that just massively underperformed. So, we have any more questions in the chat? I'm scrolling up. You see any questions on your side?
Someone's asking about perp dexes, Sir Wills. So I'm pretty bullish on perp dexes as a narrative. We saw at the very end of the bull run a huge rally with some perp dexes. We had Asta pump a lot, and the one I called the 10x in 10 days Avantis. I think that's one of the greatest calls of the cycle potentially. Every day there was a new X added onto the profit. That did amazing as well. That was the Coinbase one, and then Asta was the Binance one. I do think perp dexes will make a comeback. I'm bullish on them. I'm bullish on Asta. I actually bought Asta for the first time just on that crash the other day. And yeah, I actually prefer perp dexes as opposed to what I call trad dexes or traditional dexes, such as Uniswap, PancakeSwap, and Aerodrome. I am bullish on Aerodrome, don't get me wrong, but I think the perp dexes are a bit more advanced and they've got a bit more of a bullish prospect to them as opposed to the traditional ones.
I'm a fan. Yeah, I'm a fan. I agree with you. I'm a fan of Jupiter. I think Jupiter is going to do well this cycle. Thoughts on Tau? I like Tau. I don't know. What do you think?
Super bullish on Tau long term. It's a project that's proven itself and hasn't gone and dumped 99%. You got to realize a lot of alts, they have just withered into non-existence, whereas Potenza Tau, it's stuck around, and it did lose a bit of its range. I'm just trying to find the right pair here. Here we go. So it had a bit of a range. Let's see if it's still in it, if it's still respecting it. So it is. It's still kind of respecting the range. I mean, it depends how you draw this range, but there's clearly like a support trend line here that seems to keep getting a hit, and it seems like it's still respecting it on the weekly there. So yeah, Tau's one of those coins that's I'm a big fan of, but one of the reasons it didn't pump is because crypto didn't pump. Obviously, it's an AI coin, but people expect it to be independent of the crypto market just because it's AI related. But that's not how it works. The AI coins, they are reliant on crypto as well, not just AI. NVIDIA can keep going up, and it doesn't mean Tau's going to pump.
Yeah. Avantis, yes, I am a fan of Avantis still. What about you?
Yeah, still like it. It's not in my portfolio, but I'm considering it. I need to give it some deep thought.
Canton, I think Canton's going to be a beast personally.
Yeah, I think it's solid.
Peak, I think there's potential in Peak. It is still a project I'm interested in, but they really got to start doing something.
Yeah, another great project in terms of fundamentals, in terms of when you do your research on it, but terrible price action. And that's just been the unfortunate reality for a lot of cryptos. Great prospects, but terrible performance. I think a lot of this is to do with VCs, dilution, these types of things. I think they've really plagued a lot of the altcoins performance because they just allocate so many tokens to the VCs. They get a really cheap price. And then as soon as the project comes out, it has a very heavy release schedule and the VCs just basically dump on our heads. So unfortunately, the demand hasn't outweighed the supply on a lot of these heavy VC-backed coins.
Yeah, if you can learn, how to really manipulate the token unlocks, I find you can really be successful. Ondo is one that I am always successful at for the last 2 years, anyways, that they've been around. I noticed that the last like 2 or 3 weeks leading up to January 18th, they have a big token unlock every January 18th on an annual basis. And everybody dumps. And then as soon as they do, I always put in a long and I always succeed at making some cash there. So that's something that I point out over on our Patreon there. I'm like, hey guys, this January, I was like, it's time to put in a long on Ondo. They just did their unlock, right? Sure enough, every time, if you look, they bounce back usually about 25-30% after token unlock, I think it is. So
yeah, you got to learn tokenomics. A lot of people in crypto, they don't even know what tokenomics are. It's very important because you can have a great project, but if the tokenomics are bad, it's not going to be a good investment. And that's why I've actually I've never been a Chainlink holder. I always loved the project, but it had pretty bad tokenomics for a high cap. And that's why it actually didn't make a new high, Chainlink, in terms of price. But if you look at the market cap, like it almost did make a new high, right? In terms of market cap, the market cap all-time high is 20 billion in 2021. 2025, it got up to 17.5 billion. So basically at it. But if you look at the price, it didn't even get close to the 2021 high. And the reason for that is dilution of the tokens coming out. So that's why I was never a big proponent of Chainlink. Don't get me wrong, great project. But again, the dilution hasn't been great for it in the past few years.
Yeah. XCN, no, there is no lockup period for staking on the protocol. You can unlock anytime you want. Yes, I agree. Radium, another good perp dex. Yeah, I think that for Solana's network, we're gonna see in this next cycle, memes are gonna come back again, most likely on Solana again, and you're gonna get those perp dexes like Radium and Jupiter that are gonna continue to do really well, partially because of that, I think. So. Bullish on D-pins? Oh, the narrative D-pin. Yeah. Yeah, I'm more bullish on RWAs and mostly projects that are into like tokenization of RWAs. That's really where I'm leaning going into this cycle. So, do you think the gaming narrative will perform better? I think all narratives, personally, I believe all narratives will perform better in this next cycle than they did in this previous one. So, yeah. What about Casper? Do you still believe in it? Oh, yeah, we already talked about Casper. You have to rewind a little bit. Rewind, I just aged myself. I have to go backwards and check it out. We already talked about Night as well. You'll have to check that out. When you have time, can you give us your bullish sentiment for top 10 sectors? 10 sectors is a lot.
You got to pay us for that, man. You're expecting us to do that for free? 10 sectors? You having a laugh?
That's crazy. Tout of 1,500 in 2029. Nice. I dig it. AI narrative comes back to stocks and the public again. I think stocks need to bottom out before we can start thinking about them coming back. I mean, let's get to the bottom first. They haven't even come close, in my opinion, to a bottom.
Yeah, that's the thing everyone's pointing to is the S&P 500 and how it literally just made a new high. Really not that long ago at 7,000, and everyone's kind of expecting a 10% minimum correction. And look, I understand the reasons people are saying we're going to go much lower because of obviously how high equities are. But I think Bitcoin and crypto is a little bit more correlated with the software stocks. Like I was just saying earlier, people should definitely go and look into that. The software stocks have been getting hit very, very hard. The likes of Adobe and some of these other ones have just been getting smashed. And I think Bitcoin's more aligned with those than it is necessarily the full-on stock market. People should definitely look into that, just putting it out there. But yeah, I get the fear with people looking at the stock market and thinking if the S&P just corrects 10%, what's crypto going to do? I get it. look, I understand, but crypto seems to price things in a lot earlier than people expect, and it's a very liquid asset class. And it wouldn't be a huge shock to me if Bitcoin's already priced in a downturn on the S&P 500. I mean, we're at 8 on the fear and greed index, extreme fear. So it seems to be pricing something in. I think it's a very liquid asset. It's the first mover, and I think the S&P 500 actually lags Bitcoin.
When is Future planning to get back in the markets? Depending on how Monday or Sunday and Monday go, probably Tuesday. So, but I'll be letting everybody know over in our Patreon community what I'm doing, when I'm back in, and what I'm buying, which is the most important thing, right? Is what am I buying? We've been in a bear market since December 2024. Yeah. ICP, good project, bad content creators talking about it, and they got the short end of the stick, man. Back in the previous cycle with FTX and the debacle there, the team got blamed for dumping when they didn't. Good project. I definitely don't think it's not that I don't think. I know it's not going back to all-time highs of like $700 or something like that. So
I think it would need to be like the market cap of Bitcoin or something crazy to get to that level because of the dilution.
Yeah, look at that. Good project, but like I said, it's kind of a meme, but they got some particular bad content creators who represent them, and
with annoying voices.
Yes, everything's going to zero. Would you say instead of Link, DIA is better in tokenomics and potential? DIA, I don't even know what the tokenomics on that are anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you've got a max supply of 200 million. Oh yeah, 120 million almost in circulation already. I mean, it's got far better tokenomics at this point, but I mean, its high in terms of price was 2021, a little over $4, $4.50. This time around, it only got to $1.18 DIA. So,
Yeah, you got to look at these coins and look at 2021 compared to now. If they didn't even get close to that previous high, the likelihood is the project just isn't as good as what it was in the past. And the hype has died down, and crypto is one of those industries that's reliant on hype. And most projects die within, sometimes with memes, a few hours or days. Sometimes with layer ones, it could be a couple years. But if they're not around the same prices as 2021, then you can pretty much guarantee that it's not going to do something crazy in the next bull run, most likely.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. Here's the beauty, though, about being able to get in at these bottom prices, guys, is that you don't necessarily need projects to go back to their previous all-time highs to make money on them, right? If you're getting in at rock bottom prices, if let's say we are at the bottom and we consolidate here for a year, if you get in 2 years from now, well, I mean, obviously you're going to get far less of a return on those kind of projects, right? So ask Archie what he thinks about quantum in the future and Bitcoin using Hedera hash graph added into the blockchain for validation signatures verification.
Yeah, so I haven't looked too deep into the whole Hedera link to Bitcoin. I'm bullish on HBAR. I'm bullish on Hedera. I think it's one of those undervalued chains that could do really good things in the future. But I was listening to Michael Saylor on the MicroStrategy press conference, or whatever you want to call it, the briefing, earnings briefing, and he announced that they're going to be putting provisions in to secure Bitcoin from quantum threats in the future. And I know that was one of the narratives that has really hurt the reputation of Bitcoin in the last few months in particular. Part of this dump, I think, could be linked to the quantum threat, potentially, and the AI threat and things like that. I think a lot of the software stocks sold off because they think computing is just going to get so good that they're not even going to be needed anymore. And I think Bitcoin maybe sold off a little bit because of some quantum fears. But I always say the defense ideally keeps up with the threat of the attack, right? So the attack threat isn't really huge right now, but in the future it will be bigger. You hope that there's some smart brains out there already prepping for the defense, and that the good people have more resources than the bad people. So you got to almost think about it like anything. There's always threats that come about with technological advancement, but will the defense be viable, right? There's threats. You might get a virus on your computer, but that's why you have antivirus, and that's why they do these types of things. So I kind of see it the same way with Bitcoin. I'm happy to see that Michael Saylor announced that. And I don't know if you saw, as soon as he announced that, Bitcoin shot up. It had a really nice pop from that news. So it's clear that the market liked that. And I see people giving all sorts of reasons for this recent dump, saying Epstein's to blame and all of this. I think there's some wild reasons people are giving for the dump, but I think the quantum reason I don't think is wild. I think there's genuinely a legitimate threat there, but it's not anytime soon.
Yep. We got David, new member over on Archie's channel.
Welcome.
And Ben says, thanks, Rob. Hey, no problem, brother. I always got your back, man. All right, man. I'd love to sit here and answer questions the whole day, but I'm sure you probably got to get going too. We got stuff. Oh, we got another super chat. Ben says, thanks, Archie, as well.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone else as well. I want to ask one thing from everyone on both channels. Hit up the likes on the stream on both channels. Go across to both, hit up the likes. And for anyone who's watching my stream on X as well, hit the repost button. People need to hear this alpha from both of us. There's enough stupid people out there in the crypto space, crazy influencers calling for 1 million Bitcoin last year. Now they're calling for $10,000 this year. We need some sensibility out there and some logic. So try and get this stream out to as many people as possible, because it's going to help people out. They're not going to get wrecked.
Yeah, and make sure you check out both of our, I know Archie's got his VIP. Is it Discord?
So it's on WAP. It's wap.com/cryptoarchie. That's how you join. There's a link in my description. And yeah, you get access to a Discord, right?
Yeah. And then same thing for me, guys. You can check out my Patreon link down below in the description. It's in the chat. It's in the pinned comments. As always, guys, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share. And we'll see you guys in the next week's Blockchain Buzz.
Thank you.
Take care.